Well, hello again, everybody. It's been a while, and you are back with the CMTK podcast Time Travel Edition, where we look for previous potential lost civilization building intelligent species. I am your host, CM Kosemen, joined here on this very hot day on the 23rd of August in 2024 by my co-host, TK Sivgin. If you've been following this particular series for a while, it's a kind of speculation time travel series of podcasts where we study every period in Earth's geological history, look at the creatures which lived in those eras, and think about potential intelligent species which may have evolved then. That is to say, if we study the dinosaur era, we look at potential intelligent dinosaurs, and if you look at the age of the mammals, we look at things like intelligent giant cats or stuff like that, a rare form of speculation. And before starting, I think we must also thank one of our good friends, Sebastian, right?
Yeah, Sebastian Artworks on Instagram.
Yeah. So this series has been going on for several episodes now, and our good friend Sebastian Webb on Instagram created very detailed and very cute artworks for a lot of the concepts we discussed. He also came up with a number of unique concepts of his own, so thank you to Sebastian in advance. And that's that. What can we say about this?
Well, if I remember correctly, you want to use his pictures in the background of this video, and I think he will really like that.
Yes. So that's already an artifact you are seeing. It will either be the OG background image if this is a static video. If it lasts too long and it becomes too heavy for my computer to process as a movie, it will just be a static post. But if this episode is slightly shorter, maybe I can do a kind of rotating carousel in the background, and yeah, that will be enjoyable as well.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to? It's been a few weeks since we last recorded together.
Yeah, for context, why it has lasted so long, it's because Turkey temporarily banned Instagram. Which made it difficult for us to communicate.
Yeah, that happened, and the news cycle moves so fast these days, you just forget these things ever happened. Yeah, for like a week, the Turkish government cared really lots for the mindfulness of its citizens, and there was no Instagram access, and actually it was really relaxing, to be honest, not to doom scroll. I don't use a smartphone, but even on my computer, that app takes up a lot of my time. But yeah, so that was that, and now we are back, and the last we studied, we looked at the Permian era, and now we're going into the Paleozoic, deeper into the Paleozoic, and now we will be studying the Carboniferous era, where a lot of the coal we burn in the present day was deposited, right?
Yes, but like that's a common misconception, like not all coal comes from just the Carboniferous. I mean, there are very big deposits from this time, but you can find coal almost all the following periods in Earth's history.
All right. And what do you make of this thing that I keep reading? So apparently there was this one particular sort of bacteria which influenced the way plants decay. And then either with coal or with oil, I don't know which one's older, but when this bacteria mutated, we could no longer get coal now, even if there were giant forests that fossilized, because due to a new species of bacteria evolving, every decaying plant kind of gets fossilized as oil now. And do you know anything about this? Is it real, do you think? Or
I mean, like I said, the coal as like stone coal still was formed in the following periods of Earth's history. But the largest deposits still come from the Carboniferous because, by that time, it is generally thought that microorganisms like fungi and bacteria still had not evolved the ability to digest lignin, which is not protein, but like the molecule that makes up wood.
Yep.
So all of the plants in this time period, when they died, they just accumulated in these deep bogs.
Mm-hmm.
And the bogs just became overgrown with more vegetation. And
it's just fascinating to consider that something as small as bacteria evolution can influence the way energy sources are formed and ultimately end up determining the geopolitics of the world millions of years later. My money on the next big thing in that bacteria front, by the way, is some sort of plastic digesting bacteria evolving, and when that does,
I think that they already found like bacteria that did that.
Oh, but it's not as common. I mean, you don't get cases where like
Yet.
I want it to be as common as like mold. So when you leave a plastic bottle out in the open, in 2 weeks it starts getting bacteria infected and starts decaying. I think that's going to be very cool.
Yeah, but again, but the problem is once these types of bacteria do become common, we can't have shit that is made out of plastic anymore. And all the plastic, not just the waste, but all the plastic we use will become threatened.
It will be like the state of affairs before the 1920s, when nylon, rayon, and stuff like that was first invented. Before that, you had something called bakelite, which I don't know if it's a proper plastic even. It's just very hard, and they also call it mica. And anyways, I mean, like, it will be back to like glass bottles and metal and wood furnishings again. I don't know. I don't think this is gonna like happen in our lifetime, but yeah, it's just a side note I wanted to throw out there.
On the topic of oil, I think most oil deposits actually come from around the Jurassic.
Ooh.
Yeah, because like oil forms in a very different way than coal. Oil is mostly made out of dead algae that decomposed in marine sediments.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have so many oil deposits today in the Middle East, because the Middle East used to be at the center of the Tethys Sea.
Ah, okay.
So where today is like now Persia and Arabia and Palestine, that used to be all ocean.
Well, I mean, I guess better tidings for the next era when I don't know what's gonna fossilize into the next energy source 500 million years later or so. But anyways,
I mean, all our plastic waste could become like a source of energy for the following generation.
Yeah.
Plastic can still burn, you know?
Yeah. True, very true. It is so dispersed, though. I think commercially harvesting it is gonna be a bit difficult. But yeah. I mean, sorry, we've gotten too far into the future, but let us now go to the past and talk about the Carboniferous and all the sorts of animals that live there. And what do you think is the most likely candidate for sapiency here, TK?
Well, I can't say the most advanced in like quotation marks, the most advanced animal around this time would have been like these early tetrapods, like the first reptiles and first synapsids. But I don't know, instead of saying what is the most likely, I want to say what would be the most fun, which is, I mean, the Carboniferous was like the golden age of arthropod on land. This was truly the time of these like cat-sized scorpions, 2 meter long millipedes, dragonflies the size of eagles.
Yep.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool to have like some sort of Eurypterid civilization during this time?
I was just thinking about that actually, because I'm looking at a page showing the diversity of Eurypterids during this era. So for the uninitiated, the Eurypterids they call them giant sea scorpions, but they're not direct relatives of scorpions. They are cousins though, like they're classified within the arachnid group. If alive today, they would be great seafood, I think, but there's one species from that era which looks like almost like a giant spider with a short tail of something like a lobster and really big eyes. It is called Megarachne, and I think today it is. Sorry.
Megarachne has a very funny story, especially behind the name. Because when they found this, like they only had the front half, and they thought that this legit was a giant spider. That's why they named it Megarachne. And that's how they also wanted to portray it in this BBC documentary, Walking with Monsters.
Oh, yeah.
Then in the middle of production, they found like the back half of the animal and realized, oh shit, this isn't a spider, it's a Eurypterid. And in the episode, like they already animated everything and stuff, and I think they just changed the narration to say it is a spider, but without mentioning the species name. So like
was this the same show that shows it in a terrarium somewhere?
No, like it's the same team that made Walking with Dinosaurs.
Yeah, because when you search for it, actually, you get these like really production grade shots of something which is called a megarachne, and it looks like a very big pale spider in a terrarium somewhere. And I always wondered if this was a screenshot from that series, but yeah, I don't know.
No, because it's like they made it in a nature documentary style, so they filmed it inside a swamp, not in a terrarium.
Okay. Well, you can't get it right all the time, but I think something like this, whether it was a spider or an Eurypterid, would have made for a good candidate for intelligence. I think it has got like big eyes, which sort of at least suggest visual acuity. It has long digits, which may help it manipulate its environment. And I'm just thinking about maybe something like this forming loose social unit, not huge like an ant hive or like a honeybee hive, but something more loosely specialized, like a bunch of paper wasps, for example. So 5 or 6 of these giant spider-like Eurypterids live in a swamp, and then they go scrambling about, maybe learn how to use simple wooden tools, flipping other giant arthropods up and feeding on them. Who knows? So that's my candidate.
Or maybe like farming early reptile with their egg.
Yeah, because one thing, actually, this is really popular in the depictions of the Carboniferous these days, and it's portrayed as a sort of like battle royale or like some sort of crusades between vertebrates and insects. And
oh yeah, it's so stupid. I think like this new Netflix show also did that.
It's shown as if like clades have this sort of nation-state identity and they kind of fight against each other, so it's like bugs versus reptiles or something. But I think in reality a lot of weird interactions may have occurred. I think the biggest predator of like a big arthropod was likely to be another big arthropod, and I think the vertebrates gave each other a bad time too, so that's that.
Yeah, it was a lizard eat lizard world.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking about all sorts of like partnerships. You know this famous nature documentary trope with the goby fish and the little prawn sharing the same burrow, and they're like each other's best friends.
I don't know that. What I do know is that there is the species of spider.
Yeah, the tarantula.
That keeps like little frogs as pet in
similar story, yes. And the spider is very big, but when it's sleeping it's vulnerable against tiny ants, which are like microbots. So imagine you're sleeping in your bedroom, but there are these microbots that can enter, and like when you're sleeping they can be like those things in the Matrix going like like entering your veins and killing you. So you have to have a cat-sized frog on hand, and when you're sleeping the cat or frog just goes blip 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 and eats all the bugs. Anyway, that seems to be the nature of the partnership there. And as you described exactly, I think there were lots of these weird commensalisms back then too, where especially during molting, all of these animals are very vulnerable, these big arthropods. And okay, so the things like the giant dragonfly like things, I think they molt once and then the wings are pretty much frozen in shape. So in almost 90% of all insects, 99% actually, if you see an insect with wings, that thing is actually an adult, because the wings are just like dead tissue. They're like very carefully folded origami stuff, but the wing has no nerves or stuff. It's just controlled by like a bunch of muscles bending it and twisting it at the place where the wing joins the animal's body. So that only emerges once after the animal's final molt, and then after that, if the animal doesn't grow after that. And what I'm getting at is that the larva of this thing, if it was comparable to a dragonfly, the larva of these things must have been enormous. I don't know, maybe even a meter large, And then I could really imagine a kind of commensal, if not symbiotic partnership between the terrifying larva of one of these giant flying dragonfly type of things, like Meganevra. It wasn't a proper dragonfly, but it looked like one and it was giant. Yeah. Anyways,
I think their colloquial name is griffin flies, like Meganura and such.
Yeah, I think, was it Paleodictyoptera or...
No,
actually,
the scientific name is Meganisoptera.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, they looked like dragonflies, but technically they weren't. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, they were giant dragonflies, let's be honest.
Yeah. So imagine this kind of partnership between a giant and frankly terrifying Meganisopteran larva, where it's like a voracious predator that eats like, I don't know, other amphibians, fish and stuff like that. But it's got some little vertebrate friends. These could be like tiny reef fish type things that basically dwell around it like remoras dwell around shark, and they clean their joints. Maybe they kind of protect it when it's molting. And anyways, those types of partnerships are always fun to imagine. You know, nature is a pretty brutal place, but not every interaction there has to be predatory. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, I think we're actually drawing up here a very cozy picture of this pseudo-spider colony in the middle of the swamp. They have this little village made out of silk and wood. And between their dwellings are just chilling these prehistoric amphibians, maybe some lizards, and the spiders or pseudo-spiders look after them. It sounds kind of cozy if you are not an arachnophobe.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the Return of the Jedi Ewok village without fire and with giant scorpion-like things instead of Ewok.
You have mentioned the Ewok village a lot throughout this series. I know.
It's my go-to reference point for.
Yeah, I mean it is very chill and cool. I mean it's a village built into treetops. That's always cool. That's like the dream of every child. Like every child wants a tree house, and now imagine an entire tree village. That's just cool. It just speaks to the human fantasy, and maybe also maybe it also speaks to like a primal instinct from when we used to live in trees.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was also a bit popularized in American popular culture. I mean, famously, The Simpsons had a tree house, and then again, comics like Calvin and Hobbes and even Peanuts featured like tree houses. And like, I mean, when I was growing up, we thought every house in America had a tree house in the background where the kids could go and play. And there were also lots of movies which kind of pushed that narrative, I think. Anyways, it was just like a great place to be because it's like the imago form of the human organism, where as a kid, until you reach your teens, you're a bit like a monkey. You're smaller, you're more nimble, you can like climb faster, and like you can be more agile. So I think it does, as you said, it does speak to that part of our developmental physical and psychiatric profile. I mean, now that I'm older, I'm very careful about climbing places. But even until the mid-20s, I used to be a very skinny kid, and I would jump everywhere and like skitter and climb, and like, yeah, it does appeal to that part of your psyche.
So you think it's in the sense of ontogeny follows
phylogeny.
Yeah, ontogeny.
Yeah, and I think our childhood fantasies follow that whole thing, whatever that is. And one more note about potential intelligence in Eurypterids or giant arachnomorph creatures in the Carboniferous. We do have in the present day a kind of morphotype among arachnids, which is extremely vertebrate, like they look like cats or even little monkeys. And I am talking about jumping spiders, which have forward-facing eyes. Like if you've ever seen this like pop culture picture of a cute spider with like huge eyes and almost looks like a teddy bear. We were also talking about Ewoks, so that's what struck the thought. They almost look like little teddy bear spiders. So that's like a really cute way arthropod body plan could be kind of compressed and converted into something with stereoscopic eyes, a very high level of intelligence. Now our assumption is like, as you go back further in time, you know maybe we can imagine intelligent dinosaurs and intelligent birds and like maybe reptiles too, but when we're confronted with invertebrate creatures, we're too reluctant to attach the badge of sentience to them. Whereas it turns out that these jumping spiders with only like a few dozen big neurons, they can actually dream and they're capable of complex problem solving. There's even a species named Portia, which imitates different prey. It can develop different strategy to combat different enemy units, or like at least prey items, or like avoid different predators. So they're really, really smart. And I'm always thinking about something like this morphotype evolving from Eurypterids or other giant arthropods which lived in this era. So it would not be, of course, a giant jumping spider, because proper spiders evolved somewhat later, but it would be something that looked like one. And maybe our hypothetical arachnid or pseudo-arachnid evocs in that childhood lost treehouse village of joy, they conform to this plan and they're like manja, or like, I don't know. Anyways, I spoke my head off. Sorry about this. Like any other candidates in this age for you? Intelligence?
I don't know. Do you think the Tully monster could have done funky stuff with its trunk?
Yeah. So there's this group of really not clearly understood animals, and it's exemplified by this thing called Tully monstrum, and it's based on, like, I think there's only one fossil of this, or a few, I don't know. But it's this, like, I think 10-20 centimeter long thing. Looks like a thick worm, which is like adapted into a tadpole or almost fish-like shape. It has got flukes, but they look like they're horizontal, so like those of a whale. In one fossil, there are also things like fleshy tennis rackets emerging from the sides of the creature, but these could be eyes or fins. Nobody really knows, I think. And then it's got this one weird trunk which has got like a fork-like organ for grasping things. Nobody really knows what this thing is, which makes it so mysterious. It looks like a late surviving version of something like Opabinia from the Cambrian era, which we will get to tackle later.
Yes, but the similarity is only superficial, because in Opabinia it's at least clear that it is somewhat related to arthropods, whereas Tully monstrum, it strikes most paleontologists as either being somewhere near the chordae or being some sort of weird mollusk or annelid.
Yeah, I mean, every kind of identity has been thrown around for any of these creatures. There was some hypothesis linking it even to conodonts, which are themselves these little understood creatures.
It and Typhloesus, which is this other mystery creature, I think from the same formation.
Oh, yes.
Which I think you even made a whole video on that, which people should watch.
Yeah. The ultimate mystery organism, because it's known from the Bear Gulch Formation in, I think, Kansas or Denver.
I think Illinois, no?
Illinois, maybe. I might be totally wrong.
Or like, I'm not sure anymore if Tully monster and Typhloesus are from the same formation. I just know the Tully monster is from the Mason Creek in Illinois.
I think they're from different eras, but like they lived in the Carboniferous at least. And going back to Typhloesus, it shared its environment with a lot of weird sharks, including things like petalodons, which imagine like a stonefish created out of like a shark body plan, so you get an idea. There are also things like Harpagofututor, which was like a big eel-like shark with almost things like crab claws growing out of the mouth of the male, or the assumed male.
Just as you were saying that, I found an illustration of it in this book I have in my lap. Here, can you see it?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's just swimming there like a dangerous, weird, unidentifiable thing. Look, all fishes were a little weird in this era. I mean, you have this profusion of weird shark relatives, which we were just describing, which themselves could be like the dolphins of their age if you have an open mind. And going back to Typhloesus, it's a weird kind of, almost like a rubber toy with some sort of dense core in it. And once again, nobody knows what's what, but what they really do know is that the fossil of Typhloesus was found with a lot of conodont creatures in it, in the Bear Gulch Formation. The weird thing is these conodont fossils are not found anywhere else. And they're otherwise very common. We know like millions of conodont fossils from their jaws, which are calcium based and they can fossilize. Problem is, the only soft-bodied fossils, or some of the few soft-bodied fossils, are known from the remnants of this Typhloesus creature, which was preserved with a lot of conodont animals in it. And people still don't know if it was just eating the conodonts, or it must have been a very picky eater then. Or maybe there was something weirder going on. Maybe it was like a shuttle carrier or like a giant larva carrying form of the conodonts. But yeah, nobody knows. Nobody knows. This is like total mystery territory at this point.
What if it was an egg?
Oh, like the egg purse of a mantis.
Yeah, like you mentioned, that there are many sharks in this formation. So maybe this was some sort of egg structure, because like shark eggs are just really, really weird. They're called mermaid purses for a reason.
True. So maybe it was a weird kind of chondrichthyan egg purse, and the conodonts were in it, just maybe even eating it. So
yeah.
That's a very novel idea, man. Really great one. I mean, the whole cast of characters here looks like some sort of new alien movie with like lots of new creatures where like one comes out of the other and you can't really tell what is what, but they look like some other things from some previous films, but not that much. So yeah, a lot of that going on.
David from Alien Covenant just got drunk.
Anyways, what about among the fish and the tetrapod?
Well, I don't know. I mean, at this time, like you had the first reptiles, you had the first synapsids, but they were still just these small lizard guys.
I did not know the synapsids went back that far, but yeah, probably.
In the latest Carboniferous, you can already find like Edaphosaurs and such.
Do you think Archosaurs had a phantom lineage going back that far?
No. I think around this time you probably had like very early diapsids, and I think they even found in North America like one of the oldest para reptiles from like the latest stage of the Carboniferous, but like actual fossils of things where you can say this was an Archosauromorph and this was a Lepidosauromorph that doesn't appear until the Permian.
The go-to animal of the Carboniferous is something called Hylonomus or Hylonomus or something. Hylonomus, yes, which was like a kind of long-legged lizard kind of creature, and in popular paleontology books, this guy is always typecast as like the one that started it all, when there was nothing else on land, this guy was representing tetrapods.
Yeah, I mean, if you're telling a story, that's fine, I think. You can't give an audience like a full catalog of species and expect them to look that over. But I don't think at this point in time, these guys were like at the bottom of the
food chain.
Food chain, yeah, I was looking for that word, sorry.
Man, these days are really hot, and like totally understand, like I get brain fog sometimes from the heat.
Yeah. So like even the amphibians were more prominent during this time than these early amnio. And regarding fish, they actually just went through a very big extinction event at the end of the Devonian.
Oh.
So for them, the Carboniferous was still like a recovery period. You could say.
But at the same time, it's when we had all the weird shark things, which going back could make some interesting potential intelligent species candidates if you have a kind of an open mind. I was talking about this thing called Harpago fututor, which had imagine like a primitive shark or a chimera. Now stretch that out to look almost like a moray eel, and then from the males' mouths, you have these like almost jointed weird appendages growing with like claw-like things on top. I mean, nobody really knows, but they think maybe they used it to grip the females, but what exactly are they doing with these organs? It's not really understood, but imagine these things were, we are in fantasy land now, but for fantastic purposes, let us imagine these things could actually build tools or like use something like underwater chopstick, but because of, the sexual distribution of these structures, only the males can build tools. And that would be an interesting possibility to consider.
Yeah, don't modern chimeras like ratfish, I think is also their common name, still have these mating tentacles?
I think they have claspers. I need to check this out, but
like they have a clasper on their head, which is really, really funny.
Yeah, I'm looking at chimera mating organs. Just a second. Yeah, they do have cephalic claspers apparently called tenacula, not tentacula, tenacula. And they're less noticeable though. They're like a small, almost like a big wart or a big zit, but they are there, and scientists think they work in mating somehow, but it looks like a fleshy trigger almost like. So I don't know, maybe it got a way to hold on to things. I have no idea. Imagine the deep oceans during the Carboniferous. Now that would be something.
Oh yeah, or like the deep sea.
Yeah, because no fossilization there, and
yeah,
I'm sure there's
imagine like just some like gigantic ammonite.
Yeah, or even like Greenland shark-sized versions of these weird tangent sharks.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm sure there were all sorts of like soft-bodied creatures too, like all those weird like oil rig camera monsters, things like siphonophores or jellyfish. I'm sure there must have been lots of them.
Yeah, like
they may even have grown bigger because there were no large-bodied secondarily aquatic land animals like whales and mosasaurs around. So
yeah, just imagine like all the different kinds of jellyfish that existed throughout Earth's long history that we will never find out because they just never fossilized.
I mean, mind-boggling once again.
Yeah, but we will get to intelligent jellyfish in like the Eddie Karen episode.
Yep. So before moving on to the Devonian, do you have any other candidates or points to add?
So the Devonian the Devonian began 460 million years ago and ended about 360 million years ago. So again, a very long time. And yeah, generally called the golden age of fish.
Yep.
This is when the placoderm were probably one of the most prominent groups of vertebrates, which, if you don't know, placoderms were these big armored fish with, some of them had like very terrifying jaws that didn't have, so they had like huge plates of bone. Just
almost like turtles, but more vicious.
Yeah, just protruding from the jaws. It's very weird and interesting.
Dankylosteus is, of course, the go-to specimen.
Yeah, Dankylosteus.
Yep.
Or the dunk.
Can we just take a short break because my phone rang? I just need to see who it is.
Okay.
Just a second. Another memory I have from the Devonian, and especially relating to those fish, was when I was like really young, like 4 or 5. My grandfather went on a business trip overseas and brought back one of those ancient world card sets. And I still have that with me, actually. So there used to be these like card decks showing thematic creatures like prehistoric animals, or also there used to be some about history and stuff like that. But of course, liking dinosaurs, I got the ancient prehistoric world card set, and there was one specimen showing Kokosteus, which was a relative of Dankylosteus, but only way smaller. But this card had a typo, and I think it was said they said it was like 60 meters long. Maybe I think they forgot the C, so instead of centimeters.
When you said it had a typo, I expected them to write it like Kokosteus.
I mean, my mind was not that. I had a more innocent childhood back then, but no, they didn't write it. Creature wasn't called cock. Oh God. Its size was listed as 60 meters. And for a while, I thought, now come the inevitable jokes about 60-meter cock, but yeah, I thought there used to be this like 60-meter Kokosteus creature, which was the biggest Kokosteus of the seas, and I lived under that illusion for a while, so there.
To anyone of our viewers who has watched this far, type out in the comment, please, Daddy Kosemen, show me your Kokosteus.
Oh God.
So we know that you have watched this far. Thank you.
Okay, and it was not me who said this, so thank you. Were there any other groups of fish that were prevalent? I mean, truly, this was like the Naboo underwater planet, literally, like with weird sea monsters beneath the waves and stuff like that.
Yeah, you had all of more archaic groups of jawless fish that were still like a holdover from the Ordovician and Silurian, like pteraspids and anaspids and such. And I love all of these guys. Like, they were jawless fish, so pretty harmless, but they were like fully armored and they looked almost more like crustaceans than fish. And it's so sad that they all went extinct at the end of the Devonian because of this big extinction event that happened. And today, the only jawless fish we have left are lampreys and what are they called? Hagfish. Yeah, which are just
parasites. When I think about that world with all sorts of fish under the sea, and there were no terrestrial animals to re-invade the waters, so maybe something must have filled out the role of something like dolphins, like really smart, communicative, social animals. And I'm sure maybe they came in the form of ammonites or other cephalopods, but fish must have had such an equivalent niche filler too. And when I think about the Devonian, I always think about like an unknown zophont descending from proper fish, but they're just really smart and communicative fish. And I relate to this from cornet fish. Have you ever seen cornet fish?
No, I don't think I've seen them. Wait, let me look them up.
They're called fistularia, which is their scientific name.
Fistularia, okay, that fits with Cocosteus.
Okay. Well, no comment, but...
I know which ones you mean. Yeah, these like pipefish, I've called.
Yeah. So those guys, if you've seen them in action, they're like a fish version of cuttlefish. They always swim around in couples, or at least groups of 3 or 4.
They even have like the same coloration and like the same demeanor as cuttlefish. Just look at them.
Yeah, and they can actually change color really fast, much like cuttlefish. They can't have like very detailed patterns and anything, but they can do this kind of like dark and light flashes, chat, and they literally hover over the seafloor like attack helicopters over a modern battlefield, and they signal to each other with these color shifts. So I'm always thinking about some like unknown form of fish. I don't know what it descended from. It could also be like a descendant of these jawless fish. I mean, just because they're primitive doesn't mean they have to be dumb. So something like that, living in shallow waters and signaling each other and cooperating for hunts, maybe like moving in a crescent formation to drive, mud-dwelling small crustaceans or other slower fish, and then just herding them. I would call them the shepherds of the sea. And yeah, it's just another idea I get from looking at the Devonian.
Yeah, there is a fun anecdote regarding pipefish, which is that, do you know the Carboniferous wars?
Yeah, I know about Carboniferous, the cryptid and its lore, but I don't know about the war.
Yeah, I mean, like there were these two guys that tried to describe the Carboniferous, which is this cryptid on the west coast of, I think, Canada, or I don't know where Carboniferous Bay is. I think Canada or the USA. Anyway, it's this like pseudo-plesiosaur kind of cryptid that is said to live in the sea there. And there were these two guys that tried to claim it is a real and they tried to officially name it, and the holotype they chose were just photos of a weird carcass that was found inside the belly of a sperm whale.
Yeah, I can see the pipefish connection.
Yeah, no, that's actually another part of the story. There was like another guy who claimed to have found a baby Carboniferous washed up at the beach. And anyway, there were a bunch of skeptics, including their niche, who said, no, like that baby Carboniferous, that was just a pipefish. And they did that weird carcass that was found in a sperm whale that could have been a whale baby or a whale embryo, or something like that. And it's called the Carboniferous Wars because the people that believed in Carboniferous, they went like very militant against all this skepticism, and it's kind of funny to read it all in retrospective, I think. Like if you go on their niche's Twitter or his blog, I think you can find the whole story somewhere there.
I think just searching for Carboniferous, that's Carborosaurus wars, will get you to it. But how militant was this action? Are you talking about like the Marsh and Cope fossil wars with like people dynamiting each other's sites or stuff like that?
they were just like calling nations such like, ivory tower. Like, I think that's where the idea of the ivory tower scientist originated.
Yeah, war of the words. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a very common trope these days. I think it's only going to get more common after the COVID era and growing public skepticism of scientists. But yeah, what can you say? Also, like, it's incredible how tiny minutia, especially in the field of cryptozoology, people are willing to like go into enormous arguments over. Like, there have been some pretty acidic scientific debates and fights, but they pale in comparison to like the vitriol you see when on the edges of these like slightly pseudoscientific fields like cryptozoology or fringe science, let us say. And that militancy in fringe science always like attracted me. I think it's the personality type that gets thrown into it. Like, similar story with the whole birds are not dinosaurs thing. And what is it? Was it Alan Feduccia?
Yeah, Alan Feduccia.
Yeah. So it's just like another one of those weird correlations you notice as you make your world throughout these murky and interesting realms. That being said, due to the heat and due to a prior engagement, actually I now have to say goodbye. So we will continue with the Devonian in the next episode, and it has been a very short but very fruitful and fun one to record. But any closing comments before?
Do you know the hypothesis that some of these placoderms, especially Bothriollepis and such, could actually walk on land?
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. They look like amphibians, right? In fact, wasn't your old profile picture on YouTube something like that, like a land-dwelling Bothriollepis?
I think it still is my profile picture. Like, this is, it's like a very old reconstruction of Pterichtiode.
Yep.
And today it's generally not believed that they were capable, like the hypothesis started because they found some like fossilized organs inside of Bothriollepis that maybe were lung, and so they started some speculation. Hey, maybe they could have breathed on land and they could have used their very strong, almost like exoskeletal arms, like the limbs of an arthropod to walk around.
Yeah, their limbs are crazy. They have like joints in them,
like switchblades.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that there still is something to hypothesis. Like, both with Bothriollepis, it's a bit difficult because that was actually like an open marine fish, so it wouldn't have much need for living in an amphibious life. But there probably were like swamp-dwelling versions of these fish. And
like imagine mud skippers, but with like weird clawed arms and like boxy, almost armored. It's like a cross between a mud skipper and an armadillo.
Exactly. And there was this old SpecEvo project, Rhenia, which I basically nuked because of creative differences.
Going back to the fringe vitriol idea we just touched upon a few minutes ago,
where we kind of tried to imagine what if these hypotheses were real and these fish colonized land instead of tetrapods. And I think we can all get into that again in the next episode.
Well, I remember one of my oldest childhood SpecEvo drawings was something like this, where I basically tried to imagine a terrestrial placoderm, and I did something like a tripod creature with an armored body, and of course the third leg was the tail and everything. It was very predictable, but very nice. Anyways.
I remember that drawing.
Yeah.
Like there is like an old 3D explainer episode where he, I think, talks about Nucleus tears or Tiktaalik, I don't know. And he mentions that there were like some SpecEvo artists imagine like what if sharks and what if placoderms colonized land instead. And he showed off your art. I remember that.
Well, here's an idea before going. Here's an idea for another potential Devonian sophont. Imagine now, we were talking about fish equivalents of dolphins, and we already spoke about something like a pipefish, which was smart. Now, imagine that thing, but imagine it is actually a kind of like medium-sized relative of the Ankylosteus. That is to say, something like a cross between a sea turtle, an eel, and a shark all at once. And due to vagaries of evolution, maybe this thing also has the jointed arthropod limb-like fins, front fins that So it would almost be like a kind of, oh, what did you call those fish? There are these very weird fish with almost like tiny legs that derive from individual fin rays. They're called gunards or something. Or?
I know which ones you mean, but I also forgot the name. Like they're very creepy. They almost have like spider legs.
They have like they think their fins look like spider legs, and the other rays are flare out like wings almost.
Wait, I can look it up.
Yeah, no hurry.
Sea robin.
Sea robins, yes, that's the one.
Sea robin, yeah.
They got a whole set of related species like those, and so imagine like something like Antiarch, that is to say a Bothriolapis or a Dunkelosteus-like version of a sea robin, but bigger, like 2 meters long, and they could even be like individually smart too. And maybe they would build like fish traps, ephemeral fish traps in river mouths and stuff like that. That could be interesting because
I think we will probably come up with more stuff in the next episode.
Yeah, we will continue with the Devonian in the next episode because there's actually so much diversity in these eras. Well, thanks for recording once again, and apologies for my early departure today, but we will be back. Thanks to you all for listening. I hope you missed our evolutionary speculations as we travel back in time. And once again, to plug, I would really be happy if you could support TK Sivgin or me through Patreon. The links are on the video description and on the pinned comment. And look, I can't stress this enough. We're making these videos from our free time, and like if you compensate us, we would be really happy. And once again, special thanks to Sebastian Webb for his incredible art depicting our flights of fancy. So that is that from me. Well, how about you, TK?
I don't think I have much to add to that. Thanks to everyone who listens, and it's always nice to read your comments and what you think and what ideas you come up with, because some of you guys are really, really creative.
Yeah, and like within this channel, this series has its own sub fan base. I could tell you that. So thank you all for your comment.
And just so everyone is hyped up, I am trying to stitch all of these videos together into one big mega video. And it will be dynamic. Like I will show pictures of every animal we talk about.
For the ages.
I just hope my computer will be able to handle that, because in the end it'll probably be like a 10 hour long video, and that will be a pain in the ass to upload. And maybe I will just split it up in like 3 mega parts. I don't know.
Well, we'll see. I'm really looking forward to that. So just gives me more impetus to finish these recordings. And that is that from me. That is that from us. Thanks for listening. And I hope wherever you are, you're having a good time. And we love you all. Bye.
Bye.